Hello! This video talks about the Paul Atreides training session in all three versions of Dune, 1984, 2000, and 2021. I'll assume if you're here that you understand that Paul Atreides is the sole heir of the House Atreides and that the house is well known for their sword fighting skills and all of that sort of stuff. So we'll go right into how the three versions portray this very, very important scene of how skilled Paul Atreides is and his relationship with the training people that he works with. So let's take a glimpse at the scene from the latest version, the 2021 version, and it shows that Paul is off on his own and taking his training very seriously. So yes, he gets trained by Gurney Halleck in this case and by the other people in his team, but Paul knows what the dangers are. He knows that he's the sole heir of his house. He knows that his house and many other houses are feuding, especially the Harkonnens, or Harkonnens, depending on how you pronounce it, and that he needs to get good. Also, it's fair to note that Paul has a very strong relationship with all the trainees. He's not like a spoiled, effeminate brat that doesn't like swords or any of that sort of thing. The book makes it very clear that Paul enjoys training and has a familiar relationship, not like a higher up versus lower up kind of relationship. So, for example, in the book, Paul is teasing Gurney and saying, "Not bad for such a poor hand with the pick, but if my mother heard you singing a body like that in the castle, she'd have your ears on the outer wharf for decoration." And then Paul also teases him about putting sand in his bed, and Halleck says, "So it was your wicked hand that did the deed. Guard yourself today, young master, guard yourself. I'm a hell fiend out for revenge." So they've got a very happy, joyful relationship with each other. And Paul knows that this is very serious business, but he's been working with these men for years and years. So he has a good rapport with them about what training is and how important it is and how they're going to better his skills. So in the 2021 version, we start with Gurney alone coming into the training area. He knows it's time for training, he knows that Arrakis is very serious, and he tells Paul that it's time to get training. Paul has already been training, has already gone through a lot of grief, so he says in a weary tone, but not in a disrespectful tone, that he's just not up for it right now. And Gurney flings a knife at him and then launches right into the training, because Gurney knows that life and death is on the line here when they head to Arrakis. So we've got Gurney saying it's time to get going. We've got Paul saying, "You know, I've been training all day. I'm just not up for it." And Gurney's like, "You know what? Get your butt in gear. We're going to do some more training here." In the 1984 version, Paul's a little more smiley and laid back, but he's also saying just more jokingly that he's just not up for it and that he doesn't want to deal with the fighting right now. And again, Gurney tells him that he really needs to get his act together. So again, we've got Gurney saying time for training. Paul is saying, "You know, I'm really worn down. It's been a long day. Let's just call it a day." And he's like, "Nope, it's time for training. We're going to get our butt in gear and get some training done." Then we have the 2000 version, which I really don't like at all. We just start right in with the fighting, so we don't get any of the intro sequence. And throughout the entire thing, Paul is just nastily disrespectful to Gurney, left, right, and sideways. And it's not the friendly banter that you get in the other two movies where you get a sense that they respect each other as warriors. He is just being downright nasty and rude. It's just not a good fit in this version of the film. And now we get to the actual combat, and this is all based on the theory that these people have personal shields around them, which will not let through fast movements, but will let through slow movements. So the characters have to move quickly to get close to a person or to overwhelm them, and then they have to move very slowly to get the knife or blade or whatever it is through the shield and onto the person's body. And I like the first movie as much as people pick on the low-level graphics that it had at the time, because it shows the power of bashing and hitting against the person's shield to be able to create some sort of effect. So you can see here, they turn on the shield. Yeah, they're big and blocky and stuff, but they show that they can slide along the floor and you can overwhelm someone. And these are aspects of the shield because it's a physical force, a physical, you know, like a suit of armor that's around them and solid. So while the 1984 version is a bit blocky, they're using the shield for its purpose as a hard shell around them. In the 2000 version, I find it completely awful because they don't have any sense really that the shield is doing much at all, and the two of them are just swiping at each other, and they're showing Gurney as completely incompetent while Paul is some sort of god with swords, even though he's being really nasty and disrespectful. So then we get into the 2021 version actual sword fight, which is the only one out of the three that is worth watching in terms of the sword fight that does it well and still includes the way that the shield works in it. So at the beginning of this, you have the proof of concept. You have Paul hitting the sword twice against his hand fast to show that the shield is working, and then once to do it slowly to show that the slow aspect of the shield is working. So then we have the beginning of the sword fight itself. Both of these characters are very well trained, they know each other very well, and a lot of the blows are sword on sword. They're just testing their reactions, testing their ability to block, and they know how to move quickly to get close and then slowly to be able to get the actual blade to go through. So you'll see here that there's a number of hits where it's sword on sword, sword on sword, sword on sword, and then Gurney is able to get close with a fast move and then pull slow to be able to get in against Paul's neck. I love this moment. Paul pauses and teases him, old man, and it's a friendly jibe. It's not like he's disrespectful, and it just gets things going again. Alright, so now we're coming up to a key moment in this entire fight. This is the scene where Paul thinks that he's finally got the upper hand on Halleck, who, let's remember, is a very talented swordsman and has been training for years and years and years. So Paul lunges a little exuberantly, we'll say, and he manages to get his sword up at Halleck's neck. And he says, "Ha, is this what you seek?" And Gurney says, "Look down, lad." And Paul realizes that he was about to get killed too. And Halleck says we'd have joined each other in death. Now, he's not saying this to be evil or cruel or anything. He's trying to teach the boy because he really loves the boy and he wants him to do better so that he doesn't die the first time that he gets out there in combat. So that's supposed to be what the gist of this scene is supposed to be about. Paul is learning a lesson and is learning that from a beloved mentor. So in the 1984 version of Dune, we get that. I mean, it's big blocky shields and all of that, but we get that sense that he's overwhelmed and he thinks he's won, but he hasn't really won because actually he's about to die as well.
Is this what you seek? God, the slow blade penetrates the shield. But, look down. We'd have joined each other in death.
The 2000 version, which I abhor, has Paul saying, "Ha ha, I've killed you, you stupid old man." Gurney says, "Well, actually, I was about to make you a soprano," and he turns and walks away. So Paul is not learning a lesson, he's just being a bratty little child.
Fast on defense, slow on attack. You forgot your first principle, Gurney.
Not likely.
Look down, lad. Perhaps you'd like to sing soprano next time I play.
Now we have the 2021 version, which I think did the best job out of the three with this scene. And we're at the point where Gurney's saying you fight when you have to fight. It doesn't matter about the mood because otherwise you could die. And he launches himself at him, and you can see how quick Paul is. It really shows off Paul's speed and agility and skill with being able to get his hands on a new blade even when the old blade is ripped away from him.
Mood to do with it. You fight when the necessity arises, no matter the mood. Now fight! Come on!
This next part showcased what I was talking about before with the 1984 version. The shield is a physical barrier, and if you use it properly, you can really bash at someone and cause impacts because you're hitting against a physical barrier which is up against their physical body. So if you watch this sequence, there's a couple of sword-on-sword blocks, which are not causing much harm, but then Gurney really lets loose with the powerful blow towards Paul's stomach, and he's not thinking it's going to get through to Paul's stomach, but you think it's going to knock him out, which is part of the purpose of this kind of sword fighting. In both of the other versions of Dune, Paul takes down Gurney by smashing him up against a wall or a balcony and being able to force the knife up to his neck. But in this version, it's much more three-dimensional and much more about Paul's skill that he's able to catch Gurney up and trip him right in the middle of the room and get him down on the floor where they're able to push the blade of his knife against Gurney's neck, and then Gurney says, all right, well, I've got you too. And they don't make a big deal about Gurney's knife blade because it's not about where Gurney's knife blade is located. It's more about that he was able to catch Paul up in the anger of the moment so that Paul reacted quickly instead of thinking through his options, and that's why Paul got caught off guard. And then I really like that Paul puts his hand down to his friend and pulls him back up, because these guys are really good friends throughout this whole series.
Join me in death. I see you found the mood.
This is where the 1984 and the 2021 versions both get this right. Gurney and Paul love each other, they care for each other, they've been training together for years, and they know how serious this is. In comparison, when you take a look at that 2000 version, Paul is just a brat. He doesn't care, he disrespects Gurney, and then when Gurney bests him, Paul flings his shield onto the ground and stomps out. I can't express enough how much I dislike that 2000 version of Paul.
Guess I'm just not in the mood today.
Not in the mood? Mood is a thing for cattle and women, young pup. Mood is not for fighting. Even with the weird ways your mother teaches you.
So I think to summarize, in all three versions they get some things right. The 1984 version is a bit blocky with the graphics, but they also do a good job of showing how shields were solid objects around you and you could use them for bashing and overwhelming kinds of activities. And the 2021 version just did the best job in general between the shield use, the shield technology, the fighting stance, the fighting combat, and the relationship between the characters. So let me know if you have any questions about this series. I love it very much.